Good morning, guys. You know what time it is. It's time for tactics. Hey, so sorry about that. Welcome back to the Tactics of Trav YouTube channel. We were in the middle of a really crazy calculation from part one of this game, and then all of a sudden, an alarm went off on my phone that I forgot to delete. So shame on me. Give myself the shame bell for that one. But it's a critical part of the game. So we are at this point on move 25. This is round 3 of the 2026 Wyoming Community Foundation Open in Sheridan, Wyoming. And I'm playing a strong, over 1,800 rated player named William Wolf. And I'm at this point of the game where I was between two different moves. And the moves were either F4 or Rook to F6. And each has their pros and cons, but I chose the wrong one. So let me explain why. So F4 is the move to make here, guys, because it's a double attack, and it's a great double attack with my pawn attacking the bishop here on E3 and my bishop attacking with a discovered attack, this rook here on E7. So I did see this, and let me explain or show you the calculation that Stockfish has, because I did see the first two moves, but then I didn't calculate all the way through on it because I thought there was a better way to go to trap this bishop here. So let's explain it. So on move 25, which I should have played this, I should have played F4. This is the line. Rook C7. F takes E3. Rook takes C6. Bishop takes F3. Rook takes C3. And G takes H6. And Rook takes E3 and Rook G1. So it's a double attack initially with F4, and it turns into this crazy desperado tactic, which is super fun. 5-move sequence, tough to calculate because we're already deep into this game. We've used a lot of brain power. Our stamina is starting to wane a little bit. I'm 41 years old, so I'm not calculating like I could if I was in my 20s. But we're determined to get 2200, so we got to figure these things out. The other line with F4 is Rook to C7, Rook B to C8, Rook takes C8, Rook takes C8, Bishop to B6, Bishop takes F3, G takes F3, and G takes H6. So in both cases, guys, it's a 5-move sequence that I needed to calculate and understand fully with the way that I play. Very tactical, very dynamic, very complex chess, and that's how we've gotten to where we're at today to be able to win this game. So I should have played this. Instead, guys, I thought that was overly complex, and I thought that there was some uncertainty after Rook to C7 because I take because the line I was looking at in the game was F4, Rook C7, F takes E3, Rook takes C6, and E takes F2 check, and I didn't like it because Rook takes on F2, and now they have an open F file. We're just giving them more ways to win because now they're going to have more firepower coming down the F file. But what was wrong in that thinking was that I wouldn't take on F2. I don't have to. I would take the knight. So I just, essentially miscalculated how I thought it would proceed, which caused me to play a different move. And I'll show you that move that I played in the game. And that move was an inaccuracy. It wasn't even close to as good as F4. So what I ended up playing in the game was Rook to F6. And I thought this was, at the time, I thought this was a really clever move because it essentially traps White's bishop, right? Because the bishop is attacked. I'm threatening to take here. The bishop can't go to H5 because then my bishop will take on H5. Can't go here or here. So I thought it was a good move. But here's what Black's response is in the game to Rook to F6. And it's not a blunder and it's not a mistake, so I'm not deserving of the shame bell. We only save those for mistakes and blunders. But he plays a great move here. Knight takes E5. Excellent move by my opponent. And it kind of diffuses my threat because after knight takes E5, my best move is knight takes E5. And H takes G7 check. Great move. In between move on his part, king takes G7. Rook takes E7, check. And king takes G6. So we get that bishop but we just trade down, and he actually wins a pawn. So he won a pawn back because I was up 2 pawns. So I mean, we're like barely winning now, guys. So it's just a little disheartening when you're in the game and you know you're crushing your opponent, and then you kind of miscalculate something. And it wasn't like a blunder or anything, but it caused me to make the situation, the position a lot harder for myself. So I just, should have calculated better on that line with F4, because the fallacy in my thinking was taking on F2 with check was going to help him, which it would, but that's because I should never take on F2. I should take on F3. So that it was just, and that was 3 moves deep after, contemplating this line too. So this a lot, guys. Chess is tough. So we live and learn. So after king takes G6, rook takes E5. So he wins the knight here. And okay, so look at this. So we're up 1 pawn. So this brings apart the next part of the game, guys, and the next critical part of the game, because what I'm thinking here is that I have to play bishop to E2. So here's my thinking. If I don't play bishop to E2, this is what white could do. They could play F3, bishop to H5, G4, F takes G4, bishop takes G4, and rook to G5. Check with a rook fork, winning my bishop. So I thought that my bishop needed to move to E2, and that was my clever way of gaining tempo on white's rook on F1. So if rook to E1, then I could counterattack his rook here on E5 with rook to B5. So you see what I'm saying? Bishop to E2, rook E1, rook B5, and then if rook takes E2, we would just take his rook here on E5. But if the rook were to take on B5, I could take back my bishop on B5. So that was my clever way, in my mind, of dealing with this situation, so I didn't get my bishop trapped. So it's another miscalculation, but more of a misunderstanding of the position. And let me explain why. So I moved bishop to E2. Shame on that move. Shame on bishop E2. So it's just not a good move, guys, because you know why I moved there, and I just explained the line of what I would do if you were to go down that path. But there's another way to deal with this problem instead of going bishop to E2. Let's show you that. So it hated bishop to E2 because white has rook to C1, and they're going to win a pawn in this sequence. Rook to C1, rook C6, bishop to D4, bishop to D3, rook takes C3, rook takes C3, bishop takes C3, and A4. It's a 4-move sequence. Losing the A pawn, or losing a pawn, and only minus 0.02 now. So the game's basically even. So I went from being like almost 5 points of an advantage to barely even winning. So, and I would argue to say it's just a draw. So what they wanted, they being Stockfish, what it wanted, instead of bishop E2, and you see why that's not a good move, it wanted me to move C2, which I didn't see. So if I had moved C2, this is the line. And this is how I would deal with this situation. That it kind of solves both problems. So moving C2, let me show you how I would deal with that trap situation. So if I had moved C2, F3, so that's what I was concerned of. F4, so you attack my bishop, I attack your bishop. Bishop to C1, bishop to F5. So now I get my bishop out of trouble. G4, so he tries to attack my bishop with G4, and en passant with F takes G3, and my bishop is safe. So that is how I deal with the situation. So I would chalk it up more to improper defense. So improper defense is essentially like kind of like tactics, but it's on the defensive side. So I think there is a program called Aim Chess on chess.com that I've done a little bit, and I really like it because it kind of addresses moves like this where it's not on the offensive side where you're being tactical and coming up with cool combinations to win pieces and trap pieces and do these things, but on the defensive side. So that's what this situation is more of a blunder, not a blunder preventer. Well, it is a blunder preventer. I would say it's more of a blunder preventer. So this move is bishop to e2 was a blunder. So shame on me. Terrible. All right, so guys, after the game losing bishop to e2, rook e1, rook b5, which I thought was good at the time. And after rook b5, technically we're at zeros. The evaluation bar has us exactly 0.00. Bishop to d4, rook takes e5, bishop takes e5, rook to c6, rook takes e2, and you're like, oh my gosh, you just lost a piece. Like, how are you going to salvage this? I had calculated this. It's not a big deal because I'm going to push c2 here, and I'm going to get my piece back because white's going to have to go bishop b2 to keep me from queening, and I'm going to push c1, bishop takes c1, rook takes c1, check. And we're basically 2 pawns for 2 pawns. And I still thought I could win this because I have an isolated a pawn here that I thought I could run down the board. So we're not going to lose this. So c2, bishop to b2, c1 queen, bishop takes c1, rook takes c1, check, king h2, rook to c6, king g3, a4. I still thought I could win this, guys, and this just shows like in my end games, like I still don't really quite understand it fully. Like, I'm not evaluating properly to think that I could win this game because this is zeros, guys. This is purely a draw if perfect moves are played. So I suppose it's assuming that both sides play it right, but this game's a draw. F3, A3. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep pushing it. He finally blocks it with rook A2 and rook C3. These are all great moves. We're playing perfect chess right now in the end game. Take the opposition. G4. See, this is why it's a draw, because I can't stop his pawn either. So it takes G4. F takes G4. Rook to C4 check. There's still some tricks in here though, guys. Like we got to be able to, we being my opponent and I have to be very sharp about this, because if either one of us makes a mistake, the game could be quickly over. But at our level and the way this game has been played, it's actually been a very well played game. It's over 90%. I don't know if I told you that at the beginning, but or in part 1 of the video, had my alarm not gone off and I had to do part 2. But after rook c4 check, king f3, rook a4, now I get behind the pawn to protect it. King g3, king g5, king h3, king f4, king h4. And this is feeling very drawish, guys. I knew this, but we still have to be very careful so that one of us doesn't lose. And so I even tried the basic cheesy rook a8. Why not? Test your opponent, see if they'll actually, remember what to do and not get checkmated. But, threatening rook to h8 checkmate is what I'm saying. So rook a8, king h5, he sees it. Rook a5 check, king h4, goes back, rook a8 again, king h3, trying to avoid the threefold repetition. King F3, King H4, Rook A4, King H5, Rook A5 check, G5, King F4, G5, or King H6. Sorry, you can't do that. He's pinned. King H6. Okay, so I set a trap here, guys. This is my last hurrah to try to do something to win this game instead of it just being a draw. So I tried a trick, and this is kind of funny because he almost fell for it. So you know how we play here on Tactics with Trav. So I took the pawn here, and you guys are like, "Oh no, what are you doing? You just lost your rook." Well, this is what I was trying to do: was if rook to F2 check, king to E3. So if he takes king takes G5, then king takes F2, and we're going to win because we can promote our A pawn. So this goes back to what I've said in previous videos. Test your opponents. I mean, even with that rook A8 move, I know it's kind of silly looking for advanced players, but why not? Maybe his stamina is drained from this long over the board game. I mean, this is over 4 hours in a game 90 increment 30 tournament. So why not test your opponents, put stress on them, see if they can figure it out. So it was interesting because after I played rook takes G5, I saw his eyes kind of light up like, oh, I think he just dropped his rook. And he picks up the piece. I kid you not. He picks up the piece and he moves it over here like this, but his hand is still on the rook. And I was just waiting. I was like, take your hand off the rook because it's a touch move. And he doesn't. He doesn't take his hand off the rook, and he comes back here and he does the right move and he takes the pawn. So we almost got him to fall for it, guys. We almost got an 1850 to fall for that trick. But, you know, like I said, like, why not? Try it out, see if it works. If his hand had released off the piece, technically by rule, that's his move. He has to do it. I'm going king E3, and we could have won the game. So rook takes A3 and rook to G2, and we both agreed on a draw. But guys, this game was crazy, very tactical, very complex, very dynamic chess, really fun to play. We both talked about after the game. We agreed it was a well-played game. I think he was a little surprised, guys, at how I played. He said that he thought I was like a 2,000 rated player, but he felt like my stamina or like my fatigue had set in at the end of the game, which is, I wouldn't say it was fatigue, you know, with that rook to F6 move, because I knew that was the critical part of the game, the first part. And then after that was that bishop to E2, which was a real blunder. But guys, even with a blunder like that, like I was totally outplaying him. So it just goes to show, like, and I saw this on another person's video, but playing good chess, and I thought I'll always remember this now, isn't about who plays the best moves, because I was playing the best moves this game for most of the game. It's who makes the fewer mistakes. So think about that for a second. So if we're playing tennis or we're playing pickleball, it's not necessarily the guy who has all the slams that's slamming the ball and you just can't return it. I mean, it's a real showstopper. It's really exciting to watch. It's entertaining. But it's really the person who doesn't have as many unforced errors, that doesn't bunch the ball into the net. So that will stick with me moving forward. And so 2 things out of this game that I take is seizing the open files when they present themselves. And that has nothing to do with tactics or playing fancy chess. It has more to do with just basic principles and just following them. So that is something I will be doing, because I end up suffering at that later for the championship game of our section. Shame on me. And the rook to F6 move, like calculating deeper on the other move, which intuitively felt like it was the right move, but because I didn't calculate that sequence spot on with, I thought I had to take on F2 with check to get some sort of gain out of it, to get an extra pawn, but I didn't like it because they had the open F file. I should have just taken the knight and understood. I should just calculated better on that one, and then just gone with that, because that's a more forcing move, F4, because it attacks that bishop and it attacks the rook, and it forces him to have to think tactically. It makes him stressed, makes him have to move rook c7 and see that sequence too, instead of just a simple knight takes e5 and it's like, oh, okay, knight takes e5, and we go through what we did, and he ends up winning a pawn back. So I lost all my advantage from there. So anyway, guys, great game. We'll see you guys next Friday, or actually for Sunday's video. Watch this tactic, because every Sunday night we do tactics videos of puzzles that we do to train for these over the board games. And then the next Friday, we're going to have the round 1 game that I played against an extremely tough 1350. Some of these kids are still in the 1300s because they're just trying to get their ratings started, and they're very tough, as you know. And then there's another 1350 the following week, but they were both very good players, guys. So don't let the ratings fool you. Watch this puzzles video on Sunday, and then tune into next Friday's round 1 game of the same tournament. All right, guys, have a great day. We'll see you later.